but nobody tells a story better than a Rally Kid. So I'd like to invite Rally Kid Ruby, her dad, Dr. Jonathan Kaufman, and Dr. Sam Voschenbaum, all the way from Chicago, to join me up here. This is so exciting, isn't it? So we are so excited, and I'm going to start with Ruby. And Ruby is one of our Rally Kids. Some of you may recognize her. She has spoken here at the Benefit Bash before, and she's an amazing dancer, so she has danced for us before too, which was great. But Ruby, just quickly share a little bit about your story.
Well, as Dean said, hello, I am Ruby Kaufman. Back in April of 2015, I was diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma, a soft tissue cancer. Through the next year, I fought this cancer, going through 12 rounds of chemotherapy, 30 rounds of proton radiation, and over 150 nights in the hospital.
And you had 12 rounds of chemotherapy.
Yes.
That included what drug?
Vincristine.
Vincristine. She keeps calling it an antibiotic, which has been fun. And then when you were in the middle of your treatment, you came and you saw me and you said, when I finish treatment, I want to do something big. So while you're in the middle of your treatment, and everyone gets to see this beautiful picture of you in the middle of treatment, why did you want to do something big?
For me, there were two main reasons why I felt that I needed to do something big. First off, I am so lucky to have survived, as so many kids with cancer don't. And I felt that as a survivor, it was my duty to do what other kids cannot. I needed to raise money for the kids who couldn't raise money, and I needed to raise money for the kids in the future that will have to battle cancer so that they can have better, safer, and lifelong treatments. Additionally, I knew I was a perfect person to do this. I had this amazing community surrounding me, including Rally, and I knew I had all the tools I needed to make a real difference.
So what did you do, and how did you do it?
So all I wanted for my fundraiser was a day of fun and lots of money. So
I love her.
The way I decided to do it was what I call Ruby's Dance Till You Drop. Ruby's Dance Till You Drop was a fun day full of dancing, food, snacks, performances, and all of the above. After that day, we ended up raising over $70,000.
Woohoo!
And I'm so thankful for that from all my friends and family. And it was an amazing day. And everybody watch out for Dance Till You Drop 2. It's coming bigger and better.
Woo! This year. Yeah. Talk to Ed about how those things happen. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Ed, you could dance till you drop. So safe. No running, you just show up and do it. Yeah, be good. I'd like to see some of those moves. Okay, so we look at you. We saw the picture of you when you were in the middle of treatment, and we look at you, and you are gorgeous and all grown up and beautiful, yet I know that you do suffer from some long-term side effects. So tell us a little bit about that.
As any cancer kid, their treatment does not stop when they tell you you're in remission. For me, I have two main side effects that will basically alter my life forever. First off is, due to all the blood transfusions I had throughout my treatment, I have iron overload, which means every month I have to go to the hospital and get 2 cups of blood taken. This process is anything but easy. It can take anywhere from 3 to 6 hours, and it is painful and not fun. But for me, what's really the worst side effect is from proton radiation, was the fact that I am most likely infertile. As a 15-year-old girl who, from the age of 4, planned on having kids, little girls,
Boys are great, too.
I want a little girl to brush her hair and that kind of thing.
I got it.
But it's hard at age 15 to know that I have to deal with the fact that that might not be my reality. And not only is this mentally difficult, but this summer I will have to freeze my eggs, which is 2 weeks of lots of physical pain. So treatment ends, but it never really ends, which is something Rally also helps with.
Yeah, it never really ends. I mean, at 15, can you imagine having to think, hopefully what you're going to go through in those 2 weeks, you'll be able to have some eggs and that then they can freeze them. It's, and that's part of our mission is to have fewer long-term side effects, and ultimately a cure, but on the road to having better treatments for these kids. So, Ruby, your family is amazing. You are amazing. We are so excited about, Ruby's Dance Till You Drop 2.0. It's going to be great, and thank you for everything you do. Amazing.
Yeah.
And then this gentleman is Ruby's father, Dr. Jonathan Kaufman, who is a adult oncologist. He is a blood specialist at the Winship Cancer Institute at Emory University, right here. And Jonathan, take us back, or Dr. Kaufman, take us back to that moment as an adult oncologist. You just know so much, but to that moment where you were like, oh my word, I think my daughter might have cancer.
In the spring of 2015, Ruby was sick. She had severe headaches and a lot of nasal congestion, and Ruby's mother, Christine, was taking her to doctors, trying to figure it out, and couldn't figure it out. And after about a month, we saw a neurologist and an ear, nose, and throat specialist, and finally got an MRI. And on Friday morning, April 17th, 2015, we went and got the MRI, and I was waiting in the waiting room, and Christine and Ruby were getting the MRI. And then about an hour into it, a tech came out to me and said, the radiologist wants to give contrast, and Christine wanted you to come in the room. And as soon as I heard that, I knew as a doctor, as an oncologist, that there was something very wrong. And it was in that moment that I knew we were going to be faced with a life-changing event, and I didn't know what it was. She completed the MRI, and Ruby and Christine were in the room, and a doctor grabbed me and took me to the side and said, I need to tell you something about what's happening. And first thing I said is, does she have a brain tumor? And he said no. And I thought to myself, great, she doesn't have a brain tumor. And then he said, it looks like she has a cancer in her sinus. And there was that moment I knew where I had thought, now I knew that my life was going to change and our lives were going to change, and Ruby had cancer. And then probably the hardest moment of my life, I'm an oncologist. It's what I do as a profession. I tell people regularly, and it's always hard, that either I'm worried about cancer or that they have cancer. And in that moment, I had to tell my wife that all of her fears were born true and that Ruby did have cancer. And we then brought Ruby to the emergency department to start the process. And I then told Ruby, I said, we're worried that you have cancer. And my 10-year-old fifth grade daughter, Ruby, said to me, I can't have cancer. I have to go to school. I have a trip to Costa Rica with my class. I'm going to Camp Coleman. And then Ruby's told you the rest of the story.
Yes, Ruby did not have time for this. It was very interrupting, as it would be for any child, but for Ruby especially. She didn't, honey. You did not. But thank goodness she got her treatment. So she stuck around for that. But Jonathan, you and your family got to know Rally. You joined our medical advisory board reviewing grants for leukemias. But as as an adult oncologist and someone who's in the cancer research field, you're also a researcher, you know a lot of organizations. So why, of all the organizations that you know, why did you pick Rally to align with?
As soon as I saw your story that everybody just saw, I thought to myself, I need to be part of this group. I need to do what they're doing. And then I got to see what Rally was all about, what type of commitment as a charitable organization they have, 93 cents of every dollar going to their mission, the top ratings on all the charitable organization watchdog groups. And I said, it confirmed that this was the organization I needed to be part of. And then thirdly, as I became part of the grant review process, I realized what an important steward you were of the money that we were giving. And you are getting the best grants from around the country, and you're vetting those best grants with our best scientists, best researchers, reviewing those grants, and making sure that what's funded is going to be important for our children.
So, thank you. Ruby raises all this money, so over $70,000, and I knew that you wanted to fund rhabdomyosarcoma, and I called you and I said, tell me what it is about, what kind of grant do you have in mind? And share what you told me, which was not what I was expecting, but I loved it.
Having reviewed a lot of grants and seeing what the typical grant that's funded either by charitable organizations or the NIH, the NCI, it's very good science. In a large part, though, it's an incremental gain in the work that's already been done. And this is critical. Incremental gains is critical in cancer research, in all research. But what I really wanted is to see if there was the possibility of a big idea, of a real, of something that couldn't be funded by typical mechanisms. I know that every scientist and every researcher has on the corner of their desk an idea. It's sitting there, and they can't get it funded, and the NCI says you don't have enough preliminary data, but it's an amazing idea. And I said, can we find the next big idea in rhabdomyosarcoma?
And Jonathan told me, he said, I am really willing, and I'd like to fund and something that is high risk with high reward. And I said, I love it, I love it. So we did a request for a proposal specifically for high risk, high reward for rhabdomyosarcoma. We got back 11 full applications, and then 2 of those applications tied for the very top score. So I gave those applications to Jonathan, and I said, you tell me what it is, which one of the 2 you would like to fund. And he read them real quickly, and he said, wow, these are both so good. Can I have a few days to think it over and call you? And I said, absolutely. And he called me and he said, Dean, I've decided I want to fund Dr. Sam Volshenbaum out of Chicago. So first I was impressed he could say your name. And then, and so I said, that is great. And I said, would you like to call Dr. Volshenbaum? And he said, yes. And I said, well, before you do that, tell me why you picked Dr. Volshenbaum.
I didn't know what the big idea was when I said we need a big idea. And as soon as I read the grant and was really getting into details of the grant, I realized that this is the grant that I was thinking about that I didn't know could exist. And this is the grant that it couldn't otherwise be funded. And we needed to do it. And then, in addition to that, I realized that this isn't just a rhabdomyosarcoma grant. This is a grant that can affect all of pediatric oncology, all of childhood cancer.
Absolutely. And this is Dr. Sam Volshenbaum, all the way from Chicago on Delta Airlines. He has a whole bunch of letters behind his name, like MD, PhD, MS, just a bunch of that. So I wish you were smart. Sorry. But anyway, seems like you're doing okay. So he's an expert in pediatric cancer, and I mean, amazing mind and a big thinker, which I love. I mean, my husband and I, said that we would raise money for cancer research when we were staying in a hospital room and had no experience in that. So I love people who have big ideas and think outside the box. But when you saw a grant, that specific call out was a request for an outside the box idea for rhabdomyosarcoma, what did you think?
So I'm a pediatric oncologist, like you said, but I'm also a data scientist. And as a data scientist, what we want is to collect large amounts of data to study cancer. And when you have a rare tumor like rhabdomyosarcoma, it's very hard to study that. You'll have 1 or 2 cases at each hospital every year. And so what we wanted to do was bring together cases of cancer and share them. So we had done that a little bit here and there with some neuroblastoma and some other cancers. And then when I saw the proposal, I thought to myself, why are we thinking so small? Why don't we get all the data from Europe and from Germany and France and the UK, and why don't we all bring it together, put it in one place, and share it? And then we'll have thousands of cases of rhabdomyosarcoma to share with the world. That kind of work is so hard to get funded. We've tried with the NIH, the NCI, and so we were really desperate to try to figure out how to do this. And then this opportunity comes along, and I'm like, I'm going for it. I know exactly what I'm going to put there.
So you had your big idea, which was high risk, high reward. And take us back to that moment. What had been going on like a couple of weeks prior to before, Dr. Kaufman, before Jonathan called you and told you that you were awarded the grant?
Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget the setup. So we brought together rhabdomyosarcoma specialists from all over the world. We had folks from Germany, from Italy, from the UK, and we also had people from the US, like Doug Hawkins from the COG, who also sits on your board, right?
Correct.
And so we got all the experts together, and we were sitting there trying to figure out how can we have an impact on rhabdomyosarcoma. And we knew we wanted to do something with big data. And so we worked on it, and at the end, I knew in the back of my head, I said, we have all these great ideas, but we're not going to be able to do it. We just don't have that funding. And I knew that there was going to be a very tough conversation where I said, this is the big idea we want to do, but we don't have the funding. But 6 months before, I had put in this application for this big idea, and I get a call from an adult oncologist in Atlanta. And usually that's not good news. This has never happened before, and so Jonathan called me, and he said, listen, we read your application, and we love it, and we're going to give you funds for your research. And it was like a weight lifted off my chest, because now I knew this is what we were going to do. We were ready to go. It was an amazing, amazing time, and it was such an amazing thing to happen.
So amazing. I said it was like having Christmas and Hanukkah all on one day. It was so exciting, and we were so excited to do that. So explain, what was your big idea outside the box, collecting the data, but what will all that data do?
Well, so one of the problems when we collect data is we don't know how to speak the same language. Remember when cash machines first came out in the 80s? And
like ATM machines?
Yeah, ATMs. And,
okay.
and if you wanted to get money out of an ATM, you had to go to your card to your bank,
okay.
And it only worked in that machine. Now, the kids here have no idea about that, because now you walk up to any machine, you use any card.
And or Venmo the money.
And why did that happen? It happened because the banks learned how to speak the same language to keep their business going. Medicine is back in the 80s now. They're not speaking the same language. And this is just one example we pulled from a database, which is all the different ways that somebody kept track of age. And you can imagine if you're collecting data and trying to match it all together, this is a nightmare. So part of the big idea we had was, let's go around the world and get everybody together and get them to speak the same language. And once we do that, we have a common, what we call a data dictionary. And that data dictionary lets us power all the research, because we take all the data on thousands of kids, put it into that same dictionary, and now we can actually do research on it.
And what does that allow people to do? How does that expand the research?
Oh, it's incredible. So we're collecting tons of genomic data right now, but those genomic data sit there disconnected from all the clinical data, all the stuff about the meds and the labs and all the chemotherapy. By building this commons full of clinical data, we can now connect the clinical data to the genomic data, and all of a sudden the genomic data becomes so much more useful. So now we're connecting to genomic data, to imaging data, to all sorts of things, and now the power of these commons just continues to grow. I mean, it's amazing. It's fascinating.
It's very fascinating and so amazing. So how has the work that you're doing expanded? Or anybody who said, oh, we can't fund that, are they kind of knocking on your door now?
Yeah, so with this success, we then applied for a much larger foundation grant, and so we just received a multi-million-dollar grant to expand the commons to many other areas. And on the heels of that, the NCI wanted to fund a giant harmonization center that will harmonize both pediatric and adult cancer. It's an $8 million award, and Oregon Health Sciences and University of Chicago are doing this together. And if you think about it, this was the seed. This was the seed here that allowed us to build the next one. So Our dream is to build, the world's largest pediatric cancer data commons that has data to share for everyone. And now we're doing it. And it all started back with a dance that you started. So
That's
we're
right.
really happy about that.
And we're really excited and appreciate that you're applying for Rally to be the funders of the osteosarcoma,
Yes,
but you have to go through the dual peer review process.
we're happy to do
Okay,
that.
good. Yeah. I have a good feeling about it. But osteosarcoma, as many of you know, has a big place in a heart for us. Grace fought that, and Ed's brother, and we're very excited to see all that come together and what it's going to mean, for childhood cancer. And we are thrilled to provide the seed money, and we could not do that without people like Ruby and her family and people like you who are supporting it, because as you've heard me say many times, when we fund something, a lot of times I wonder, like, what have we left on the table? Have I left the cure on the table? Have we left the cure on the table? So I kept thinking about that other grant that didn't get funded, although it received like great score, it tied, and because of your generosity, we went back and we funded that grant, and it also has made an incredible discovery. Jonathan was with me when we heard about it from that researcher, Dr. Adam Durbin out of Boston from Dana-Farber, and Jonathan actually got tears in his eyes, but y'all will have to come back next year to hear the rest of that story, because we got other things to cover tonight. But I want to give it up for Ruby and the Coffin family and Dr. Volshenbaum.
Okay, good job.
You did great.